The 3 red suns of the Andorian sector burned bright in the endless black of space. Their crimson light painted everything with the color of blood. On the command deck of the massive warship Dark Sovereign, Admiral Vextar stood tall and proud. His body was covered in thick, shiny armor that looked like the shell of a giant insect. This armor was part of him, grown from his own flesh over many years of battle. The Admiral's eyes glowed with a cold blue light as he looked at the reports on his screen. Numbers filled the display, showing how much tribute each star system had paid to the Zephyrian Empire. 17 different worlds had sent their payment on time. Gold, silver, rare metals, and strange energy crystals now filled the Empire's treasure ships. The Admiral smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Good, he whispered to himself. They remembered their place. Behind him, dozens of Zephyrian officers worked at their stations. They moved with quick, precise motions, their clawed hands dancing over glowing controls. Each officer wore the same Katanas armor as their admiral, but theirs was less decorated. Only the highest-ranking warriors earned the right to wear the golden symbols of command. Sub-Commander Threshka suddenly looked up from her sensor station. Her antenna-like head appendages twitched with excitement. "Sir, we are picking up strange energy readings from the Outer Rim territories," she reported. Her voice had a clicking sound that all Zephyrians made when they spoke. Admiral Vextar turned his massive head toward her. His neck joints made small creaking sounds as the armor plates shifted. "Show me," he commanded. The main viewing screen flickered and changed to show a star map. Far out on the edge of known space, small red dots pulsed with warning signals. The readings showed power signatures that did not match any known technology in the Zephyrian databases. The Admiral studied the display for a few moments, then waved his armored hand dismissively. "Dying stars and floating debris," he said with a snort. "The Outer Rim is worthless. Nothing but empty space and dead rocks." Sub-Commander Threshka's antenna drooped slightly, but she did not argue. No one questioned Admiral Vextar's decisions. He had led the Empire's fleets for over 50 years and had never lost a single battle. His reputation for crushing enemies was known throughout the galaxy. The Dark Sovereign was itself a symbol of Zephyrian power. The massive ship stretched. For 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull was made of quantum-forged metal that could withstand the blast of a dying star. Along its sides, hundreds of weapon ports housed the dreaded quantum disruptor cannons. These weapons could tear apart the atoms of enemy ships, leaving nothing but scattered particles floating in space around the flagship. 40 other warships maintained perfect formation. Cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels moved through space like a school of deadly fish. Their adaptive shielding systems constantly shifted and changed, cycling through different energy frequencies to protect against any possible attack. The Admiral walked to the large window at the front of the command deck. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see the stars stretching out before them. Each point of light represented a world under Zephyrian control. Some had surrendered without a fight when the Empire's fleets first arrived. Others had tried to resist. Those who fought back had learned a harsh lesson. Their cities now lay in ruins, their populations forced to work in dangerous mining operations on airless asteroids. The Empire did not forgive rebellion. It did not show mercy to those who refused to pay tribute. The Galactic Council, made up of representatives from hundreds of different species, had long ago accepted Zephyrian dominance. They held their meetings in a grand space station, but everyone knew the real decisions were made in the Imperial Palace on the Zephyrian homeworld. Diplomacy had become just another word for surrender. Even the mysterious crystalline collective avoided direct confrontation with the Empire. These strange beings lived inside ships made of living crystal that could grow and change shape at will. Their technology was advanced beyond most species' understanding, but they too bowed before Zephyrian military might. Admiral Vextar smiled as he remembered the last time anyone had dared to challenge the Empire. It had been over 20 years ago, when a group of rebel worlds had formed an alliance. They thought their combined fleets could stand against Zephyrian power. The Admiral had personally led the attack that destroyed their forces in a single day. The rebel leaders now served as slaves in the Imperial mines. "Set course for the Kepler systems," the Admiral commanded. "We have tribute to collect." The massive fleet changed direction with fluid grace, their engines leaving trails of blue plasma in the darkness. The patrol route would take them through 12 different star systems over the next month. Each world would present its tribute, and any signs of rebellion would be crushed immediately. This was routine work for warriors who had never known defeat. The galaxy belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, and Admiral Vexstar intended to keep it that way. Unknown to him, however, the strange energy signatures from the Outer Rim were about to change everything he believed about power and dominance in the universe. The human starship Resilience moved quietly through the dark space near the star. Called Kepler 442, its white and blue hull reflected the distant starlight as it drifted between the planets of this unexplored system. Captain Lee Min-ho stood on the bridge, watching the main screen show readouts from their scientific equipment. Lee was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. He had joined the space service 20 years ago with dreams of finding new worlds where humans could build homes. This mission was supposed to be simple: scan the planets, take samples, and report back to Earth. No one expected to find anything dangerous out here in the empty space between galaxies. "Captain, the third planet shows signs of water," reported Lieutenant Park Sola from her station. She was young and eager, fresh from the Space Academy. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing controls as she studied the sensor data. "Atmosphere looks breathable too." Lee smiled. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. Begin detailed scans of the surface. Look for any signs of life." The bridge was quiet, except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. The Resilience was not a warship, but a research vessel. Its hull was made of strong metal alloys, and it carried powerful computers for analyzing planets and stars. Crew of 50 scientists and officers had been traveling for 6 months to reach this distant system. Suddenly, Lieutenant Park's face went pale. Her eyes widened as she stared at her sensor display. "Captain, I'm reading multiple contacts approaching our position," she announced, her voice shaking slightly. "The configuration is unknown, but they're big. Really big." Lee moved quickly to her station and looked at the screen. Dozens of red dots were moving toward them from the edge of the star system. The computer was trying to analyze their size and shape, but the readings seemed impossible. Some of the approaching ships were larger than anything humans had ever built. "How long until they reach us?" Lee asked. 15 minutes at their current speed," Park replied, before Lee could respond. Space itself seemed to tear open in front of them. Brilliant flashes of light filled the darkness as massive alien ships emerged from what looked like holes in reality. The lead vessel was enormous, a dark, angular monster, covered in weapon ports and glowing with menacing energy. On the bridge of the Dark Sovereign, Admiral Vexstar studied the small human ship through his tactical display. The alien vessel looked primitive to his experienced eyes. Its hull was made of simple metal instead of quantum-forged materials. Its engines produced basic electromagnetic emissions rather than exotic matter drives. "Pathetic," he muttered, his chitinous mandibles clicking together. "These creatures barely deserve to be called spacefaring." Sub-Commander Threshka looked up from her weapons station. "Shall we destroy them immediately, Admiral?" Vexstar replied. "Standard protocol first. Demand their surrender and prepare boarding parties. Perhaps these primitives have something useful to offer the Empire." The Admiral activated his communication system and sent a message to the human ship. His words were harsh and commanding, filled with the authority of someone who had conquered hundreds of worlds. The message was clear: surrender now or be destroyed. On the Resilience, Captain Lee received the alien transmission. The ship's computer tried to translate the strange language, but the words made little sense. Universal translators showed concepts about dominance, submission, and tribute. It seemed like the aliens were demanding something, but Lee could not understand what they wanted. "Lieutenant, open a diplomatic channel," Lee ordered. "Let's try to talk to them." The communication system crackled to life, and Lee spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Captain Lee Min-ho of the United Terran Space Service. Come in peace and seek dialogue with your people." We mean no harm and wish to establish friendly relations. Admiral Vextar listened to the response, and his anger grew. These primitives dared to speak to him as equals. They offered dialogue when he had demanded surrender. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever shown such disrespect. To the Empire, they mock us, he snarled to his officers. Fire warning shots. Show them the price of defiance. The quantum disruptor cannons along the Dark Sovereign's hull began to glow with deadly energy. Beams of pure destruction lanced out toward the human ship, designed to disable its engines and force immediate surrender. Every species in the galaxy knew what those weapons could do. They tore apart matter at the atomic level, but something impossible happened. The human ship's defensive systems activated automatically. Shimmering barriers of superheated plasma surrounded the Resilience, absorbing the alien energy weapons completely. The ship's artificial intelligence calculated the best response. In Mikram Defs, Captain. Lee watched in amazement as his ship's shields held against the alien attack. They're trying to destroy us, he said grimly. All hands to battle stations. Prepare to defend ourselves. The Resilience was not designed for combat, but it carried defensive weapons for protection against space pirates and debris. Kinetic projectiles, simple chunks of tungsten metal, were fired from the ship's rail. Guns. These projectiles moved at incredible speed, nearly as fast as light itself. The tungsten rounds struck 3 Zephyrian cruisers before their crews could react. The simple metal projectiles punched through the aliens' advanced armor like bullets. Through paper, explosions lit up the darkness as critical systems were severed and power cores overloaded. Admiral Vextar stared in shock as his ships took damage from primitive weapons. Before he could order a full attack, the human vessel disappeared in a flash of light, jumping to hyperspace and leaving the Zephyrian fleet alone with their wounded ships and wounded pride, the Imperial Palace. On the Zephyrian homeworld was a massive structure made of black volcanic glass that rose into the purple sky like a mountain of darkness. Deep within its halls, Emperor Coalmouth sat on his ancient throne, his enormous body crackling with electrical energy. The Emperor was twice the size of ordinary Zephyrians, his chitinous armor decorated with the bones of conquered enemies and precious metals from 1,000 worlds. Admiral Vextar knelt before the throne, his head bowed in shame. Around him, the High War Council had gathered the most powerful military leaders in the Empire. Their armor gleamed under the red lights of the throne room, but their faces showed confusion and anger. Never before had a Zephyrian fleet returned, home with damaged ships and tales of defeat. Speak, commanded the Emperor, his voice echoing through the chamber like thunder. Admiral Vextar raised his head slowly. My Emperor, we encountered an unknown species in the Outer Rim territories. They call themselves Terrans, and their technology is unusual. War Prime Zekaloth, the Empire's most feared general, stepped forward. His scarred face twisted with disbelief. Possible, he growled, his mandibles clicking angrily. No species in the galaxy possesses weapons capable of penetrating our adaptive shielding. Our armor has withstood plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion bombs. Yet 3 of our cruisers required extensive repairs, Admiral Vextar replied grimly. The Terran vessel was primitive in appearance. Simple metal construction, basic electromagnetic systems. But their weapons cut through our hull plating, like it was made of soft clay. The Emperor's electromagnetic field flared with rage, causing the lights in the chamber to flicker. For 300 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and overwhelming force. The idea that primitives could damage their ships was unthinkable. Tell me about these Terrans, the Emperor demanded. They appear to inhabit only a few systems near the galactic edge, Admiral Vextar continued. Our intelligence suggests their civilization is young, perhaps only a few thousand years old. But their defensive capabilities far exceeded our projections. Emperor Coalmouth rose from his throne, his massive form casting long shadows across the assembled commanders. His height of nearly 4 meters made even the largest warriors look small. The ceremonial cape made from the hide of a space dragon flowed behind him as he paced. "Mobilize the Grand Fleet," he commanded, his voice filled with deadly purpose. 12 dreadnoughts, 60 cruisers, and full support vessels. We will crush this insurgence before it spreads to other species. The galaxy must remember that the Zephyrian Empire is supreme. The orders went out immediately across the Empire's communication networks. On military bases throughout Zephyrian space, alarm sirens began to wail. Soldiers ran to their ships while technicians loaded weapons and supplies. The Grand Fleet had not been assembled for over 50 years, not since the last great rebellion had been crushed. Within days, the most powerful armada in galactic history gathered in the Zephyrian home system. The flagship Eternal Dominion was a monster of black metal and energy weapons. 5 kilometers long and bristling with enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. Around it floated the pride of the Empire dreadnoughts, whose quantum disruptor cannons could crack planets in half. Cruisers with shield generators powerful enough to deflect the radiation from dying stars. Admiral Vexstar stood on the bridge of his new flagship, studying star charts of the Terran home system. Intelligence reports suggested the humans lived around a yellow star they called Sol, on a small blue world covered mostly with water. It seemed impossible that such an insignificant species could threaten the Empire. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," announced his new second-in-command. "Proceed to the Sol system," Admiral Vexstar ordered. "These Terrans will learn the price of defying the Empire." The massive fleet disappeared into hyperspace, crossing thousands of light-years in a matter of hours. Admiral Vexstar expected to find a handful of primitive worlds defended by simple orbital platforms, easy targets for the Empire's overwhelming firepower. Instead, long-range sensors revealed something that made the Admiral's blood freeze. The human solar system was protected by a defensive network that defied all conventional understanding. Weapon platforms floated in perfect formation around each planet, their energy signatures showing power levels that matched Zephyrian dreadnoughts. Automated defense stations formed geometric patterns in space, connected by streams of data that moved faster than light itself. Admiral Kim Daeho commanded the Terran Defense Fleet from the bridge of the UTSS Guardian. The Korean officer had been expecting this attack ever since the Resilience returned with its report of first contact. Earth scientists had worked around the clock to prepare their defenses, using technology that pushed the boundaries of known physics. When the Zephyrian Armada dropped out of hyperspace beyond Pluto's orbit, Admiral Kim was ready. His fleet of sleek human warships moved into attack formation, their hulls gleaming silver against the darkness of space. "All units execute Protocol 7, he commanded calmly. "Show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home." The Battle of Luna erupted in spectacular fashion. Human vessels used the gravity of planets and moons to accelerate to impossible speeds, swooping around celestial bodies like fighters in an atmosphere. Their quantum-entangled communication systems allowed perfect coordination. When one ship changed course, the entire fleet adjusted instantly. Antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the Zephyrian ships, followed by exotic matter weapons that bent space and time. The aliens had never seen tactics like these. Their formations began to break apart under the relentless human assault. The battle between Earth and Mars raged like a storm of fire and metal in the cold darkness of space. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as human and alien ships traded devastating blows. The vacuum carried no sound, but the flashes of light told the story of a desperate fight for survival. On the bridge of the UTSS Guardian, Admiral Kim Daeho watched his tactical display with growing concern. Red warning lights blinked across the screen as more human ships reported damage. The Zephyrian dreadnoughts were massive and powerful, their quantum weapons tearing through even the strongest human shields. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them," reported his tactical officer. "The aliens are pushing through our outer defense ring." Admiral Kim gritted his teeth. His fleet was fighting bravely, but the enemy had superior numbers and firepower. Just when it seemed the battle might be lost, something extraordinary happened. Far out at the edge of the solar system, near the frozen rocks and ice of the Kuiper Belt, long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature approaching. Readings were so powerful that the computer systems initially thought they were looking at a small star. The UTSS, Invincible, emerged from the darkness like a giant awakening from sleep. The battleship was enormous, 5 kilometers from bow, 2 stern, larger than any vessel ever built by human hands. Its hull was sleek and dark, covered in armor plating that seemed to absorb light itself. Along its sides, weapon ports glowed with barely contained energy. Captain Choi Hoon-hwa stood on the command deck of this mighty ship, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays showing the desperate battle raging around Luna. He was a quiet man, with steel-gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many years of service. Behind him, his crew of 2,000 officers and specialists worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. The Asterisk. Invincible Asterisk had been humanity's most secret project. Built in the hidden shipyards beyond Neptune where no alien eyes could see, for 5 years. Best scientists and engineers on Earth had poured their knowledge into creating something that could stand against any threat. The ship contained technology that pushed the very limits of what humans understood about physics and energy. Captain Admiral Kim is requesting immediate assistance, reported Commander Yoon Jawan from the communications station. She was young but experienced, chosen for this mission because of her brilliant tactical mind. The Zephyrian dreadnoughts are breaking through our defensive lines. Our forces won't be able to hold them much longer. Captain Choi nodded slowly. He had been expecting this moment since the ship's construction began. All hands to battle stations, he announced over the ship's communication system. Prepare for combat operations. The Invincible began to accelerate toward the battle zone, its exotic matter drives creating ripples in space-time itself. The ship moved faster than anything its size should have been able to move, bending the laws of physics through technology that seemed almost magical. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Vextar was directing the final assault on the human defensive positions when his sensor officer suddenly looked up in alarm. "Admiral, we have a massive contact approaching from the outer system," the officer reported, his voice filled with confusion. "The energy readings are... impossible." Admiral Vextar turned to study the sensor display, and his chitinous face went pale. The approaching vessel was showing power levels that exceeded anything in the Zephyrian databases. Its engines were producing exotic radiation signatures that their scientists had only theorized about. "What manner of ship is this?" he whispered, watching the impossible readings scroll across his screen. The human battleship closed the distance with frightening speed. Captain Choi studied the enemy flagship through his targeting systems, noting its massive size and heavy armor. This would be the ultimate test of his ship's capabilities. "Target the enemy flagship," he ordered calmly. "Charge the primary weapon system." Deep within the invincible systems that had never been used in actual combat began to awaken. At the ship's most powerful weapon was something no other vessel in the galaxy possessed. A focused gravity beam generator powered by a controlled singularity. At the heart of the battleship, a miniature black hole spun in perfect containment. Its immense gravitational forces harnessed and directed through exotic matter conduits. The weapon charged slowly, drawing power that could have supplied an entire planet. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship as energy levels climbed toward dangerous peaks. Space-time itself began to bend around the Invincible as the gravitational forces built to incredible levels. "Weapon charged and ready," reported the weapons officer. Captain Choi looked at the enemy flagship one last time. Admiral Vextar's ship was beautiful in its own deadly way. It's a masterpiece of alien engineering that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. But today, that reign of terror would end. "Fire," he commanded quietly. The focused gravity beam lanced out from the Invincible like an invisible spear of twisted space-time. It struck the Eternal Dominion with force beyond comprehension, tearing through the ship's adaptive shielding as if it were made of paper. The quantum-reinforced hull plating, designed to withstand the most powerful weapons in the galaxy, crumpled and bent like soft metal. Admiral Vextar watched in horror as his ship's fusion reactors began to collapse under the gravitational assault. The artificial gravity field created by the human weapon was creating a miniature black hole inside his own vessel. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship as the Eternal Dominion began to implode, its massive bulk folding in on itself like a house of cards. "Abandoned ship," Admiral Vextar shouted, but his words were lost in the chaos as his proud flagship consumed itself in a display of exotic physics that no Zephyrian had ever imagined possible. The small escape pods drifted through space like scattered seeds, their emergency beacons flashing red against the darkness. One by one, the surviving Zephyrian ships collected the survivors from the destroyed flagship. Admiral Vextar floated inside one of these tiny vessels. Its once proud armor cracked and scorched from the explosion that had consumed his ship. Through the pod's small window, he could see the twisted wreckage of what had once been the Eternal Dominion. The mighty dreadnought was now nothing more than glowing metal debris, its atoms still radiating the strange energy that had torn it apart. Never in his 50 years of military service had the Admiral witnessed such complete destruction. The rescue ship's airlock opened with a hiss, and Admiral Vextar stepped onto the deck of the Iron Claw, one of his surviving cruisers. The crew looked at him with a mixture of respect and fear. Their legendary commander had returned, but the defeat was written clearly on his scarred face. "Set course for home," he ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." The journey back to Imperial space took 3 long weeks. During that time, Admiral Vextar sat alone in his quarters, replaying the battle over and over in his mind. How had the humans built a weapon that could bend gravity itself? Their technology seemed primitive in many ways, yet in others it far exceeded anything the Empire possessed. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Kolmoth received the news of the defeat in the Great Throne Room. The massive ruler sat in stunned silence as the surviving officers delivered their reports. Its electromagnetic field, normally steady and controlled, fluctuated wildly with rage and disbelief. For over 300 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and overwhelming force. No species had ever matched their weapons or challenged their dominance. The very idea that primitives from the Outer Rim could destroy their greatest flagship seemed impossible. "Summon the science cast immediately," the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the obsidian halls. "We must understand these weapons that bend gravity itself. How did they build something we cannot even comprehend?" Meanwhile, across the galaxy, word of the human victory spread like wildfire. On hundreds of worlds, enslaved populations whispered the news in secret. The mighty Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by newcomers who called themselves humans. For the first time in centuries, hope began to grow in the hearts of the oppressed. The Galactic Council, which had served as little more than a puppet government for the Empire, suddenly found itself with new purpose. Representatives from dozens of species sent diplomatic messages to Earth, seeking alliance and trade agreements. The humans had proven that the Zephyrians could be beaten, and everyone wanted to be on the winning side. Captain Choi and the Invincible became legends throughout human space. The battleship took up permanent patrol duties around the Sol system, its massive presence serving as a constant reminder that Earth would defend itself against any threat. Children on colony worlds drew pictures of the great ship, and adults spoke of it in hushed, respectful tones. But the humans were not content to simply celebrate their victory. Captain Park Gina, one of Earth's most respected military leaders, addressed the Global Defense Council in the underground bunkers beneath Sol. She was a stern woman with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much war. "The Zephyrians will return," she warned the assembled leaders. "They will study our technology, adapt their tactics, and come back stronger than before. We cannot afford to become overconfident." The Defense Council voted unanimously to expand the battleship program. New shipyards were constructed in the asteroid belt, hidden from prying eyes by advanced stealth technology. Human scientists worked around the clock to improve their weapons and defenses, knowing that the next battle would be even more dangerous than the first. Admiral Vextar, meanwhile, had been given a new assignment. The Emperor placed him in charge of Imperial intelligence operations, tasking him with understanding human technology. In secret laboratories deep beneath the Imperial Palace, Zephyrian scientists studied fragments of human weapons recovered from the battlefield. The antimatter containment systems baffled them. The exotic matter manipulation techniques seemed to violate known laws of physics. Most puzzling of all, was the gravity weapon that had destroyed their flagship.
Okay.
How could any species harness the fundamental forces of the universe so effectively? Trade routes throughout the galaxy began to shift as merchants and cargo haulers sought new paths that avoided potential conflict zones. The space between human and Zephyrian territory became a dangerous no-man's land, where patrol ships from both sides watched each other with suspicious eyes. Former client species of the Empire quietly began to explore possibilities for independence. On worlds that had paid tribute for generations, local leaders held secret meetings to discuss rebellion. The humans had shown that the Empire could be defeated, but everyone knew that freedom would come at a terrible price. The galaxy watched nervously as the apex predator species circled each other across the void. Neither side wanted total war. The destruction would be unimaginable. But both prepared for the possibility, building weapons and training soldiers for battles that might determine the fate of every inhabited world. The age of unchallenged Zephyrian dominance had ended, replaced by an uncertain future where humanity's relentless drive for advancement stood against the Empire's desperate need to maintain supremacy. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the next confrontation was already taking shape, and when it came, it would determine who truly ruled among the infinite points of light that made up their shared universe.